Third-party controllers have gained a reputation of being buggy, uncomfortable, and just terrible in every single possible conceivable way, forcing gamers all around the world to shell out egregious amounts of money just so that they can control their game. Well, this is the Amazon Basics Xbox One wire controller, and although a mouthful, comes in under half the price of the official controller, which means could atrocious third-party controllers be a thing of the past? Let's find out. When picking up the Amazon Basics Xbox One controller for the first time, it was safe to say that my hands were a little confused, with the controller having an Xbox One button layout and look, but with the hand feel being much closer to a DualShock 4, keeping my hands farther apart and tilting them inwards less. Which is to say that for me, it feels pretty good, as long as you ignore the, in my opinion, quite uncomfortable grip on the back of the controller. Which I guess leads me right into the build of the controller. Layout wise, it's just like a first party controller, minus the expansion port, but keeping the 3.5mm headphone jack. The build quality is very solid and, in my opinion, strongly beats out the first party controller in terms of how much the body flexes, and it is durable enough that I wouldn't be scared if anyone threw it across the room in a fit of rage. Which is something I probably wouldn't want to do, so long as I want to keep my USB ports intact, as the cable is non-removable. And it's not like the cable's bad, with a substantial rubber coating as well as very strong stress relievers, albeit with a very loose connection near the USB end, which may be a good last line of defense against accidental tugs or trips, but can also sometimes come unplugged in less than fortunate situations. And with a length of 9.8 feet, the controller should be no issue for desktop use. However, this controller does work with a standard Xbox One, so how's the living room environment like? In my particular living room setup, the controller was just able to reach my furthest away sitting spot, and when sitting a little bit closer, it wasn't an issue at all. Unless your setup has a TV bigger than 65 inches, I wouldn't be worried. Which all brings me to the most important characteristic of a controller, and that is the buttons. If I were to describe them on this controller with only one word, it would be clunky. For the most part, the buttons, sticks, and triggers work just fine. However, overall, it is clear that there just isn't quite the same level of polish as there is on the first-party controller. The analog sticks stick out a little bit farther than I would like, and the clicks on them feel like an afterthought, with the grips being the same. The triggers feel okay, however it took me some getting used to get the feel for the R and L1. That is, as long as you ignore the D-pad. I genuinely tried to find something that this D-pad did even passably, but I just can't. It is mushy and unresponsive and frequently registers a direction I did not intend to press, and is honestly hard to tell what I'm even doing by feel alone. If you intend to play any sort of games that require the D-pad heavily, strongly stay away from this controller at all costs, for otherwise you'll be sorely disappointed by this controller. Which I suppose brings me to the conclusion. Are third-party controllers a thing of the past? Well, if this controller is any indication, that's a definite yes. Honestly, this has become my go-to controller for desktop gaming use, and most of the negatives I have for this controller come from using a standard Xbox controller for so long. So if you're considering this to play the occasional game that works much better on PC with a controller, then this is perfect for you. As far as use as a secondary controller or backup, because of the pure simplicity of plug and play, I would say this controller also works perfectly for that situation. And for everyone else, although it may feel a little foreign at first, honestly, this controller may just end up being your favorite.